Okay, I call back to order the afternoon session of the May 21st Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. I'm getting some feedback. Scott? I need some help over here. I think it's Shane's devices.
It doesn't automatically.
If Jim is available, let's go ahead and replay our public announcement.
I'm so sorry. I thought it automatically took it to where it was. Okay. It's, yeah, my fault.
It wasn't you.
I thought it automatically went back to normal. My apologies.
Okay, I'm not hearing it.
Yeah.
Better start that over. Uh-oh. Did I do that?
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those at Century 2, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, public hearing procedure, and planning department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. Planning Commission and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representative to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room or the GoToMeeting comments box. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to district court.
Okay, a couple of things. Number one, I apologize for being late. Our morning session ran just a little bit longer than we anticipated, and so we're running about 5 or 6 minutes late getting the afternoon sessions. We apologize for that. A bit of housekeeping. We officially will close the Board of Zoning Appeals, which was the last bit of business we were doing this morning, and reopen the Planning Commission meeting for this afternoon. We are now in Section 5, Public Hearings, and we will go through to determine if there are any items that we can take by consent. Our first public hearing item is Agenda Item 5.1. This was deferred from February 20th, 2020. It is a city zone change from single-family residential to limited commercial on a property located east of 21st Street North and North Oliver Avenue. Is there anybody on the commission wishes to hear that item? Okay, we will hear agenda item 5.1. Agenda item 5.2 is originally set for March the 19th, county zone change to create a planned unit development, MacArthur Land PUD, on property located south side of K-15 and north of East MacArthur Road. Is there anybody on the commission that wishes to hear that item?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just have a staff question on that.
Okay, we have a staff question. Is there anybody on the in the Board of Directors room that wants to hear that item?
Yes, Mr. Foster would.
Okay. We will hear item 5.2.
Yes or no?
Okay, consider for consent, agenda item 5.3. Original MAPC meeting date was March 19th. County zone change from rural residential to single-family residential to permit lots smaller than 2 acres on property located near East 71st Street South and South 127th Street East. Is there anybody on the commission want to hear that item? Seeing none in the council chambers, is there anybody in the boardroom that wanted to hear that item? Also,
None in the boardroom.
okay. None in the boardroom, okay. Also, when for those committee members that are watching from either the place of business or home, when I reference the board meeting, if you've got something, just shout it out at that point, because sometimes I fail to ask you guys if you have any comment on that, so just butt in from that standpoint. Is there anybody in Century 2 that wants to hear Zone 2020-0006?
Not today.
Not there? Okay, is there anybody from another device that is watching or listening in on this meeting want to hear agenda item 5.3 on the property we just talked about? Not hearing that, we will take item 5.3 by consent. Agenda item 5.4, originally part of the April 9th, 2020 meeting, a city zone change from SF5 single family to limited commercial, and limited commercial to limited industrial on the North Market Street and North Park Place between East 31st Street North and East 35th Street North. Is there anybody on the commission want to hear that item? See none in the council chambers. Anybody in the boardroom wish to hear that item?
None in the boardroom.
None in the boardroom. Anybody at Century 2 wish to hear item 5.4?
Yes, I have one person.
Okay, we will hear agenda item 5.4. Agenda item 5.5, city conditional use to permit wrecking and salvage and property zone, on property zoned general industrial located or near East 21st Street North and near 2055 North Mosley. Anybody on the commission wish to hear that item? Anybody in the boardroom wish to hear that item?
None in the boardroom.
None in the boardroom. Anybody at Century 2 wish to hear agenda item 5.5?
None at Century 2.
Is there anybody listening in on another device that like to hear that item? Seeing none, we will take agenda item 5.5 by consent. Okay, agenda item 5.6 has been deferred to the June 18th meeting. Agenda item 5.7, city zone change from limited commercial to office warehouse to allow for construction of a storage building, property located near West Central Avenue, east of 235, and the east side of North Hoover Road. Anybody on the commission wish to hear that item? Seeing none, anybody in the boardroom want to hear that item? Yeah, Mr. Foster, do you want to hear that, or you got a staff question?
Also have a staff question.
Staff question, okay? Is there anybody at Century 2 wish to hear agenda item 5.7?
5.2.
Yes. Sorry. No, there's no one here for that case.
Okay, is there anybody else listening in on another device wish to hear agenda item 5.7, which was zone 2020-00008? No, we will come back to that on for a staff question. Agenda item 5.8 with the CUP 2020-00010. Rezoning of a light commercial and a CUP to create new parcels for future development on property located north side of East 21st Street North and east of K96 Highway. Anybody on the commission wish to hear that item? Mr. Hartman would like to hear that. We will hear agenda item 5.8. Okay, agenda item 5.9, originally set for the meeting of April 23rd, a city CUP amendment to the Westway Shopping Center to permit an event center generally located on the southwest corner of South Seneca Street and West Pawnee. Anybody on the commission wish to hear that item?
Right here.
We will hear agenda item 5.9.
I move for approval of 5.3 and 5.5.
We have a motion by Mr. Joe Johnson. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Green. Any further discussion? Mr. Yount, would you call the vote, please?
Warren,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Richardson,
He's no longer present.
Gross, I'm sorry,
Aye.
Dexler,
Yes.
Dool,
Yes.
Blick,
Aye.
Nix,
Aye.
Foster,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Joe Johnson,
Yes.
Miles,
Yes.
Hartman,
Yes.
Florence,
Yes.
13-0.
Passes unanimously. My understanding is on our last agenda item, I think 5.9, we've got, the applicant has got a scheduling conflict. And so I'm going to move that to the head of the list, and we will hear that item first rather than last. So if, Philip, if you're ready, let's go ahead and hear agenda item 5.9 CUP 2020-00004.
Okay. This agenda item, the applicant is proposing to amend the uses on parcel 1 of the Westway Shopping Center Community Unit Plan to add as a permitted use an event center, even those that might be considered a nightclub in the city, where the sale of alcohol and provisions for entertainment are accessory uses. Parcel 1 occupies, as you can see, the majority of the southeast portion of the CUP. The majority of the CUP is zone limited commercial. As you can see, there are small strips on the south and west sides that are zoned general office. No buildings occupy that area zoned general office, therefore this will not require any zoning action. The applicant initially requested an amendment to the CUP for just an event center. However, after further discussion with the applicant, it was determined that a nightclub in the city was a most appropriate use category in order to permit the desired activities based on the presence of entertainment or alcohol, as defined by the city code. The city code defines entertainment in chapter 3.3. Basically, anytime there's live music, whether it's with a band or amplified or a DJ or karaoke, you can see the list of what those definitions are there. Anytime there's entertainment and alcohol present by our zoning code, that site is considered a nightclub. According to the CUP, parcel 1 is limited to the following uses currently, which is shopping center and associated tire and batteries and accessory stores, supermarkets, financial institutions, offices, personal services, retail services. Additionally, a vocational school, restaurant, and outdoor entertainment in the form of carnival rides, games, and concessions were added as permitted uses by various administrative adjustments in 2003 and 2014. With this amendment, the general provision for parcel 1 would read as follows, where we break out what those permitted uses are with adding point D in there for the event centers in the city, including those considered nightclubs, as well that have the sale of alcohol and entertainment as accessory uses. North of parcel 1, within the CUP, is zone limited commercial and has a variety of commercial uses like retail stores, fast food restaurants, financial institutions, and a supermarket. Property to the north of West Pawnee is limited commercial as well, with a very similar makeup of commercial uses. Property south of parcel 1 is primarily zoned SF5, single family. However, right there on the corner of Seneca and Crawford, it's zone neighborhood office and is occupied by an insurance office with associated parking. Property to the east of parcel 1 across Seneca is zone limited commercial with a variety of uses such as coffee shop, bank, retail shops, and fast food restaurants. And west of parcel 1 within the CUP is zone limited commercial and general office, and it's primarily undeveloped land. Jim, if you want to go to the aerial, we can see that. In addition to a paved area that was once used for parking. It has pretty extensive case history. I'm not going to go through all of it, all the way back down to 1984. Most of these things are what we kind of already talked about, that allow the different types of uses with the administrative adjustments. There's been some vacations of platted street setbacks. There's been some use exceptions to allow a nursery and garden center. Again, just an extensive case history, kind of getting us to where the shopping center is today with the permitted uses, as well as where the buildings are located, as we see it is today. All the public services are available on the site. Both Pawnee and Seneca are 5-lane paved arterial roads. The comprehensive plan indicates that this site is predominantly for commercial. The additional use to the CUP is consistent with the overall uses, and adequate space and parking is available for the use. Therefore, the overall spirit and intent of the CUP is in conformance with the policies and guidelines of the CUP with the City of Wichita. Staff recommendation for this case is to be approved, subject to the following conditions. The first one being that the CUP amendment text be amended to include the use that is listed in point D of that first condition there for the event center in the city. The CUP drawing would be revised, and that copies of the CUP would be given to staff. Subject property has been used for multiple commercial uses in the past. The amendment will permit a use not reasonable given the nature of the CUP. With the management and use through the community unit plan, the approval of the proposed CUP amendment would have minimal detrimental impacts to neighborhood properties. Approval of the request would permit the expansion of uses on the subject property. Denial would presumably represent loss of economic opportunity for the applicant or landowner. I can go through some pictures of the site. This is looking northwest along Seneca. You can see there's a restaurant and just commercial uses along Seneca. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Pawnee. Go to the next one. This is looking from Pawnee south at the whole shopping center. You can see the expansive amount of parking that is available. This site is behind where the event center would be, looking at the wall that's there and the landscaping that separates the CUP from the residential houses to the south. This is looking west. There's that undeveloped area and paved area that used to be used for parking behind the main shopping center. This is looking along Seneca. You can see the different commercial uses that are available on the east side of Seneca. This is within the shopping center itself, looking north. You can see the coffee shop, and you can see just the retail stores and the garden center that are already operating. This is that insurance site located right on the corner of Seneca and Crawford. This is the neighborhood office zone site. This is looking down Crawford at the residential uses that are there. Again, there's a masonry wall as well as landscaping on the south side of the subject property, separating it from the residential uses. This is looking at the specific area where the event center would take place. You can actually see the banner. You can see the banner sign that actually says Westway Event Center. It's presumed that this use is currently operating and that this case is bringing it into compliance. And those are the pictures I have for you. I can stand for any staff questions.
Questions for staff, Mr. Blick?
Question I have is, since they're just picking one section out there, but since it's a whole parcel, they could pretty much do a nightclub in that whole section, half of that shopping center. Is that correct? So if they want to expand.
The way the CUP would be written is would permit a nightclub in the city because of the sale of alcohol and the entertainment that would be provided.
So they could go pretty much anywhere in that parcel, and if they wanted to?
Yes, in that parcel.
Okay, and then also on the furthest southeast corner, and if you look at the site map that you provided for us, that actually has the zoning and stuff. There's a church, I believe, that's within 500 feet from this property. And I just wanted to confirm if that's true or not. That site map right there, you see that orange square right there? That is actually, and that big white square, it says CON 2013. I believe that's a church, is that correct?
I'm unaware of that. I didn't go that far into the neighborhood, so I can't confirm or deny whether or not that's a church.
It is. I was just wanting to see if you guys knew or not. That's all the
I
questions I have
will
right
admit
now.
what I just stated about the way the CUP is written. It would include an event center where the sale of alcohol and provision of entertainment are accessory uses and not just a full-on nightclub.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from members in the council chambers? Anybody in the boardroom have a question for staff?
There's none in the boardroom.
Okay, agent or applicant?
Mr. Curtis, are you there?
He's muted.
Is he gonna be at Century 2 or is he gonna be operating from his home?
I saw him on the
He's
list
on there, but
of
he's
people
muted.
who has called in under Westway Event Center. His mic is currently muted. Jim, are you able to unmute Westway Event Center? Gotcha. Mr. Curtis, if you can hear us, your mic is muted. This is your opportunity to talk about this case.
Curtis Bowen. I've lost Mr. Bowen.
Hello, Mr. Curtis was not able to make it to our meeting this afternoon.
Okay.
He is currently at his house, getting well and being safe.
Who are we speaking with, please?
This is Oscar Gomez, Silver Star Management Company, ahead of Westway Plaza. And I'm in here in the office with Mr. Luis Soria and the applicants.
Okay, basically, we'll give the applicant 10 minutes. Would you like to use that time to make a short presentation on what it is you're wanting to do?
Yes, sir. We'll go ahead and start.
You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Here at Westway, of course, growth, safety first for all the residents and customers. This event center will be mostly not on a daily basis. Weekends, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays during the day, birthday parties, weddings, receptions, family reunions. We are not thinking of it, or the applicant's not thinking of it as a nightclub, more like get together with the family. They have a process already with the start applying for the liquor license, bring catering companies, contractors in place. Mr. Curtis is going to help with the fully construction. That way, everybody's safety with the fire code, fire marshals, and any construction permits they may need. And basically, that's all we have. It's a family event center, more than a nightclub.
If you just hold right there, we'll see if anybody on the commission has any questions for you. Mr. Blick?
Question I have, so basically what you're saying is it's based off of reservations versus a standard hour of practice. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. You're correct.
And then how late are you planning on these reservations going till at night?
12 midnight.
Okay, so 12 midnight, and there's no outdoor music or anything like that past 10 o'clock?
No, sir. There won't be no outdoor music held out in the parking lot. As a matter of fact, I do have a, a procedure, on outdoor music during the day. We really try to avoid all of that.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Hartman?
Yes, are you planning on using your existing building there, or are you planning on putting in a separate structure for this?
It's all existing. That was the new foundation church building at one time. So it's all existing.
Okay,
No
thank you.
additional will be made to the outside of the walls or anything.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody in the boardroom have any questions for the applicant?
None in the boardroom.
Okay, how about any of our commissioners calling in from home or work? You guys got any questions? Okay, I'm good, yeah. Okay, with that, is there anybody that wishes to speak on this item? We'll start in Century 2. Is there anybody there that wishes to comment?
There's none here.
There's none there? Okay, we'll ask for those that don't. Is there anybody listening in from another device that would like to comment on this item?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, please state your name and address for the record, please, and you will have 3 minutes.
This is Linda Winter for Dan Lynn at 2644 South Fern. And the question is, will that business be allowed to impede any of the normal parking lot traffic that goes in front of the building, such as when people come from Crawford and drive up to Ace Hardware or the grocery store?
Okay, excellent question. Do you have anything else? We'll try to put all of our questions in one basket and then answer those at the end. Is there anything else that you would like to know about?
I do not.
Okay, let's go on and see if there's any other speakers that would like to speak on this issue. Is there anybody else out there from another device that would like to speak on this issue? Okay, does staff want to answer that question about being an impediment to parking, or do we want to give that back to the applicant?
Well, they have shared parking agreement internally in the shopping center, so to my knowledge, there are not designated spaces tied to each tenant, so, they've got the right to float across the parking lot as.
Scott Wadle speaking. So in effect, I think what staff is saying is that it would be up to the property owner to manage how they do their parking on their property with their tenants.
Well,
There's probably rules regulate. I mean, you can't park in a non-parking stall. You probably can't park right in front of the building because there's no parking stall, and those rules would still apply.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, and that's correct.
Okay. Ms. Winter, are you still there?
I am.
Did that answer your question?
Sort of, because my concern was not so much about the parking spaces, but about the accessibility where we drive.
Okay, let me ask,
You know,
have the applicant, if, Mr. Soria, are you still there?
Yes, sir. I really don't think, to answer her question, there shouldn't be anything blocking resident roads. We have enough parking throughout the shopping center, and the time frame of each scheduled event. Will more than likely be after 5 o'clock, normally business hours, in the shopping center. So these spaces, the stalls will be more than likely empty.
Okay, thank you both for that. Mrs.
That didn't answer my
Yeah, I think
question.
she's worried about traffic on her street.
Okay, was your question regarding traffic on your street? Was that the main thing?
No, I'm sorry. I must not be phrasing it correctly. What I'm concerned about is the parking, is the asphalt in front of the business where we currently drive 2 different directions, having access to other businesses. I don't want any of us to have to be driving around some canopy tent stuck out in the driving area immediately east of this business, right adjacent to the sidewalk, adjacent to his business. I don't want anything blocking that.
That's
Yeah,
understandable.
And I mean, to answer your question, there's no permits. Nobody's allowed to have any tents outside. There's no parking by the curb. That is a fire, only fire, lane.
Yes.
It's all, I have it all painted in red. Well, the Silver Star Management Company has it all painted in red. That's a fire zone there. Everybody in the event center got told in their lease, that all their loading and unloading will be conducted towards the back of the shopping center, which they have 2 double doors. They have plenty of exits on the back area. So there won't be uh, no one parked directly in front of the driveway.
Very good. Thank you. That does
Thank you.
answer my question.
Glad we
I
got that
appreciate
clear.
it.
Okay, is there anybody else wish to speak on this item from another device? Seeing none, we have two,
Just,
Mr. Yes.
sorry, one moment while we unmute all the callers. Looks like we're good. If you,
We're good? Okay. I don't think there's anything that we need for, is there anything else that you want to say, Mrs. Soria?
Anything? No, sir. We don't have anything else to say.
Okay, thank you. Bring it back to the commission for action. Mr. Blick?
I'm pretty familiar with this neighborhood in this location. And, the neighborhood has, in the past years, have had events and nightclubs try to come into residential neighborhoods. I see that this is a better fit for it and a lot better. It's a large parking lot, the backfield, it's a little bit further away from residential neighborhoods. From what the applicant said, he is not gonna have any outdoor music, and he's got his operating hours are pretty much right there. So I would entertain a motion to approve this, and go from there.
Okay, we have a motion to approve as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second, okay?
Ms. Miles provided a second.
We have a second by Mr. So to tell you what, we've been cheating the guys in the director's room. Is somebody in the director's room like to make a second?
Ms. Miles provided a
Okay,
second.
we will, just so you can feel like a part of the fan club, we'll take your second. Any further discussion? Mr. Yearout, please read the.
Warren,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Gross,
Aye.
Dexler,
Yes.
Dool,
Yes.
Blick,
Aye.
Nix,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Joe Johnson,
Yes.
Miles,
Yes.
Hartman,
Yes.
Florence,
Yes.
13-0.
Motion passes 13-0. Puts us back on our regular schedule. We were here, agenda item 5.1. Philip, do you have that one also?
I do. Again, this is Philip Ziebenberger with the planning staff. The item before you today is Zone 2019-32. This case was recently heard by the Planning Commission in December of 2019. Since then, it had a couple of deferrals. Was supposed to be heard again in March and then, got canceled, and here we are today. There's nothing new in the major meat of the staff report. Since the last time it was heard in the Planning Commission, the will of the Planning Commission in December was to defer the item, to have staff consider crafting a protective overlay for limited commercial zoning. So I won't necessarily take too much time to go over the details of the staff report. What I will do is go over the details of what you have on the memo, which is attached to the staff report ahead of it. And what is outlined in the memo is the protective overlay that staff has worked with the applicant on in terms of what would be acceptable to them and really acceptable to staff for protective overlay for limited commercial zoning for the two properties you see there on the northwest corner of 21st and Oliver. 99% of this protective overlay comes from the same protective overlay staff recommended for general office zoning. The only difference is point number 1, which is the list of prohibited uses on the site. Since limited commercial is a more extensive or intensive zoning, it allows more uses, and so that's really where we needed to come in to come together with the applicant to determine what staff recommendation was going to be versus what the applicant was looking for as well. The items in point number 1 that you see in red, those are staff recommended items, but those are also items that the applicant wishes to be able to do, but staff is recommending that they are prohibited. So the list of uses that would be prohibited would be duplex residential, manufactured home, group residence, cemetery, correctional placement residence, golf course, recycling collection station, recycling processing center, reverse vending machine, utility, car wash, construction sales and service. Convenience store is something staff recommends to be prohibited, but the applicant would want to have it. Lost my place here. Entertainment establishment in the city, event center in the city, funeral home, marine facility, recreational monument sales, nightclub in the city, nurseries and garden centers, pawn shops, recreation and entertainment indoors. The applicant wishes to have restaurants with drive-in and drive-through services allowed, but staff is recommending that they are prohibited. Secondhand stores, sexually oriented businesses, taverns and drinking establishments, teen clubs, vehicle and equipment sales, asphalt and concrete plant, outdoor storage, agricultural research, and agricultural sales and services. The rest of the protective overlay, I'll go in a little bit of detail here, but again, it was what was potentially being considered back in December for general office, and it is the same language that comes from the staff report that staff was recommending for a general office protective overlay, and that is a 6 to 8 foot masonry wall where abutting residential properties, 1.5 times the landscaping materials, and a 15-foot wide landscape buffer. They could do an equivalent earth berm with a sufficient amount of landscape requirements along the north and the west properties lines as well. That has a contingency on the north property line. If the property to the north were to be developed commercially, the north property line would not need that screening. A landscape street yard with trees planted at 1.5 times the landscape ordinance, both on 21st Street and Oliver. And that would have to be a 20-foot wide barrier, except for breaks within the landscaping for driveways. All buildings would have to share uniform architectural character, color, and predominant exterior features. They would have to be earth tone colors with limiting vivid colors to accents. It would have to employ materials that are similar and complementary to the surrounding residential area. Predominant exterior features have to be non-metal, and non-residential buildings located in the area would have to be residential in character with a hipped or gabled roof and exterior building materials similar to that of the residences in the area. Outdoor lighting sources would be cut-off luminaries and within a height limit of 15 feet. Building signs will not face north or west on abutting lots if they're developed with single-family or two-family residences. Ground signage would be required to be monument style with no more than 8 feet in height, and all signage have to comply with the city code. Portable signs, off-site sign, banners, string pendants, and the like would not be permitted except for a banner sign permitted for 30 days of the opening of business. The building height would be limited to 35 feet with no west or north-facing windows above 12 feet. And then prior to the issuance of building permits, a site plan would need to be reviewed by the planning director. We'd also have one for the building elevations in order to make sure that all these points, the protective overlay were met before any building permits were issued, and there'd be no outdoor speakers or amplification system permitted. So with that, I'll stand for any staff questions. If you have questions about any of the details within the staff report, I'll be happy to answer those specifically versus taking the time to go over the staff report in detail all over again.
Thank you, Philip. I'll start this one. Was there any questions from the commissioners in the boardroom?
Any in the boardroom? None in the boardroom.
Any questions from commissioners in the council chambers? How about you guys from home? You got any questions for staff? Not hearing anything, so I'm gonna assume not. Agent or applicant? Are you at Century 2 or are you from a remote location? Who's making our, that's gonna be Levi Bond?
Good afternoon, this is Robert Moody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
May I proceed?
You may. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Again, my name is Robert Moody. I'm an attorney at Martin Pringle Law Firm. We are joining remotely via video from Martin Pringle at 645 East Douglas. In the room with me, I represent the applicants in this matter. D&P Land LLC, owned by Mike Marks, who's president of the room. Also, the applicant Ulysses Rip Gooch, who is president in the room. Also with me is Larry Cook of Larry Cook Construction, who's been working with staff related to this proposed protective overlay that's been sent to the commission, as well as Jemima Wanjao of Jemima International Realty. I won't go too much into the staff report except to emphasize the fact that this property has been in front of the commission a couple of different times. I think this is round number 3, starting back in 2013. Once again, it came back in 2018. And would just note the significant changes in that intersection that have occurred since that time. Clearly, WSU is to the south of this property, and there's all types of restaurants and businesses that have been developed during that time frame. I think there's even a hotel going in that area as well. The northeast part of this intersection, there's a Quick Shop that's been there. And also, as we speak, there is a 4-story apartment building that's being constructed. In regards to the southeast corner of that intersection, my understanding is that southeast corner where there currently is a church was recently approved for limited commercial, and that's what the applicant here is seeking, is limited commercial. Respectfully, we are seeking that as the highest and best use. We certainly understand there are some neighborhood concerns related to our request, and we do want to thank the commission for giving us the opportunity to work with staff to come up with the proposed protective order, protective overlay, and it did give us an opportunity to speak with the neighbors as well. I understand we're not going to be in agreement on everything, but we certainly appreciate the opportunity to engage in dialogue with them to see if we can come up with something that would help alleviate some of those concerns. In that same regard, Mr. Marks and Mr. Gooch share those same concerns. They've lived in this neighborhood for decades. And so they certainly understand the concerns of the neighbors, and they certainly, any development that takes place in that area, they want to respect their neighbors and be a good neighbor, and but at the same time being able to get the highest and best use of their land. In that regard, the neighborhood opposition, that's only one factor that the commission should consider out of the 9 factors that the commission shall consider related to this rezoning application. And that factor alone is insufficient to approve or deny this request. It's everything in that area is commercial. It's changing, it's expanding. There's a great economic opportunity in that area. And that's the request for this application. Conversely, any denial of this application will limit or deny Mr. Marks and Mr. Gooch their opportunity to get the best and highest use of that land and benefit economically from this rezoning application. In regards to the proposed protective overlay that was presented and just that Mr. Zevenberg just discussed, we're in agreement with most of that, except a couple of points, and I'd just like to go through those briefly, and then I'll wrap up and stand for any questions. In regards to paragraph 1, certainly we'd like the opportunity. This is the conundrum. We'd love to be able to tell the neighbors or the commission or anybody that wants to know, okay, what are we gonna put in there? What's gonna be developed? But that's the catch-22 in the conundrum, because we can't even have any discussions with potential tenants until we get this property rezoned. And so we don't have any certainties. And for that reason, obviously, we want to keep this as broad as possible. But we don't have any problems with those exclusions in paragraph 1, with the exceptions of the convenience store and or the restaurant with the drive-in or drive-through services. Considering the current situation that we're in, where restaurants have been shut down and the only viable way to be able to do business with restaurants is through a drive-through or through some type of drive-through service or drive-in service. It's a perfect example of why we don't think that restriction should be included in paragraph 1. But what goes along with that would be paragraph number 10, where the outdoor speakers and sound amplification systems shall not be permitted. I think those two kind of go hand in hand, and so we would request respectfully that that portion not be included as well. The only other issue that we have with this proposed protective overlay is in paragraph 6, second sentence, ground signs should be monument style and be no more than 8 feet. We request that 8 feet be changed to 15 feet. And so we think that with this protective
blurred. Could you repeat that part about the fence?
How high for the monument sign?
15 feet.
Yes, sir. Paragraph 6, the second sentence there, we limit any signage to 8 feet, and we would respectfully request that be limited to 15 feet instead of 8 feet.
Thank you.
And so there's just 3 changes that I guess 4 changes. We'd like to eliminate the convenience store and the restaurant with the drive-in from paragraph 1. We'd like to change paragraph 6 from 8 feet to 15 feet, and we'd like to remove paragraph 10. With that being said, we think it's the opportune time to allow this LC rezoning with all the economic activity and development that's going on in the area. It's just the whole entirety of that intersection, with the exception of the property that we're trying to get rezoned, is currently at LC. And so we would respectfully request that the commission recommend that the LC be approved. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Blick?
At the very end, you said you wanted to eliminate paragraph 10. Is that because of a drive-through speaker? Is that the reason why you said that?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure the reason why.
Okay, anybody in the boardroom have a question for the applicant?
No one in the boardroom.
None in the boardroom? Anybody, any of our commissioners from home or work? Okay, not seeing them. Okay, thank you for your presentation. We will now open it up for a public hearing. We will start with any speakers that we have at Century 2. Please. Okay, I'm not hearing you. No sound. There we go.
They just
Nope.
muted it again.
Still, try it again. Mary, I can't. Mary? Try that again and make sure we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Okay, please state your name and address for the record, please, and you will have 3 minutes.
Can I take this mask off?
You can?
Yes, my name is Craig Toulson, and I live at 4 Crestview Lakes, and I am adjacent to the rear of the property that is number 12, which is to the east of us. We are against this zoning request, and we are part of a well-established neighborhood, as you guys have been told in the past, or everyone's been told in the past, and that has been confirmed. This would encroach on our peace of mind, our family peace of mind, and our neighbors' peace of mind. Third, I'd like to say that our fear of closing, of allowing businesses to come in is because of closing and partial use of businesses that have been in the neighborhood in the past. Steps from where they stem from our memories of the area. Historically, from Woodlawn to Grove and 13th over to 21st Street, we recall the closing of 2 banks, 2 Quick Trips, Kmart, Walmart, Dillon's, an event center, Big Lots, laundromat, lawyer's office, Cicero's Buffet, Taco Tico, a Bionic Burger, comedy club, bookstore, dentist's office, and others that have, some of them have not been replaced, like the flower shop or service stations, the multiple service stations. But we don't anticipate that 2 lots are going to produce anything that all of these attempts have either only have partial occupancy or have failed or at least left the area altogether. And that's the extent of my presentation.
See if you would stay.
Question.
If you would stay there right there, we'll see if there are any questions. Any questions for the speaker? None in here. Any questions from the boardroom? Thank you, sir.
None
Appreciate
from the board.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Before the next speaker comes on, I'm anticipating that we may have a number of speakers that we usually do on this item. So I am not going to be inclined to issue additional time over the 3 minutes. So we encourage the speakers to be concise with their comments so they can complete them in the 3-minute time period. Next speaker, please. Is there more there at Century 2?
No, we only had the 1 speaker today.
That surprises me. Okay, we will now see if there are speakers from other devices, from home or either by phone or computer. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on this issue?
Yes, sir.
Yes, there is.
Okay, whoever is next, state your name and address for the record, please, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll go ahead. My name is Mark Lutz, Lutz. I live at 14 Crestview Lakes Estates. I am 2 houses to the north of the properties that are wanting to rezone. The one issue I'd like to address is the fact that the noise level, due to the fact that I believe the people's attorney, Mr. Moody, talked about a apartment complex being built. That apartment complex is about 4.5 stories. It runs the length of the Oliver there around address number 12 and number 13. If anyone's ever been in a canyon, you can hear the reverberation. It goes up 4.5 stories. So when you have cars, motorcycles, etc., coming down that road, the noise just reverberates back into the neighborhood. So if you want to have a business that has amplification until 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, it's going to just raise the noise level to the neighborhood, not just on my street, the street that I live on being Oliver, but back into the neighborhood. You know, case in point is we can hear WSU when the baseball games are going. So, and there are no walls to funnel the noise there. In this case, we have this huge apartment complex now that's 30 feet from Oliver. So the noise is only going to get louder. So I am totally opposed right now to the rezoning certification. Again, my name is Mark Lutz, and I live at 14 Crestview Lakes Estates. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for the speaker? Any questions out of the boardroom? Okay, next speaker, just start talking. Just give us your name and address for the record, please, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hi there, I'll go next.
Okay.
My name is Christina Unrein. I'm at number 7 Crestview Lakes Estates. And the we're trying our hardest not to reiterate anything anybody else has said, just to save some time for you guys today. So I hope that you realize I agree with what the others who have said. What I want to say is that the planner has told you and recommended to everyone that GO is the highest. And I know that wasn't mentioned today because he's not reading the staff report to you, but the idea that we're planning for LC at all and that they're asking for more changes to an already overarching request compared to what the community worked a year to make with the plan in mind, with getting it adopted. It's a little saddening that this is what we keep going. We've given in more than we'd ever wanted to, and we didn't fight against the building that Mark just mentioned for across the street, and we're regretting that. And it's making us really, really regret having anything or even giving in a little bit. The process is messed up in the sense that there is no site plan required, which means that they want a convenience store. So if somebody needs a convenience store, we already have one across the street. But hey, why don't you give us the right to do that too? They're not here to help the community. They're here to fill their pocket. They've already gotten a little bit of their pockets filled by having the road redone and getting slivers of their land purchased. They got tens of thousands of dollars for that. They've had people living at their houses. It's not unworkable, and it's already written in our covenants, which I know you guys can't fight for or against, but that's something we have to keep in mind because we have to pay for the repercussions of this. We are against this completely. And if for some reason you have to vote for something because you just like it has to be developed, then go with what the planner says. Stick with GO or less, like the plan says. I sent you guys already a list of all of the commercial property around the neighborhood. Within a mile or two, there is almost 100,000 square foot of office and retail space released, and another 232,000 square foot of commercial space available for sale. This is double what was available 2 years ago when we were fighting this. And for us, that's a horrible thing. Like Craig Tolson said, we have had so many failed businesses in this area. Let's revamp what's already there, give the community as a whole a fighting chance to get back what we're losing, and to give a chance to WSU to fill up their vacant brand new buildings so that they can be prosperous, since we've already thrown $15 million plus at infrastructure to help them be successful. So again, we're against this. We'd like it to remain single family, but if you have to, please listen to what the planners are telling you and match the plan. That's everything.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Is there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none from this room, is there anybody in the boardroom that has a question for the speaker? If not, we will move on to the next speaker. Oh, no one there? Okay, next speaker. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Steve Falke, 3 Crestview Lakes Estates, Wichita, Kansas. As the president of the Crestview Lake Homeowners Association, I'm speaking today on behalf of a majority of the homeowners in our HOA. We are emphatically against this rezoning and ask you to deny this request for the foreseeable future. We're basing this on many of the things you've already been made aware of. Mostly, we're asking you to follow the golden rules, a few of which I would like to highlight. Number 1, the zoning, uses, and character of the neighborhood. The overwhelming character of the neighborhood around these properties is one of cohesive stability, safety, and unified oneness of residential application. Number 2, the suitability of the subject property for the uses which it has been restricted. It has been restricted to SF5 residential, which is certainly suitable as demonstrated by the consistent occupation by a family sheltering in place during the COVID-19 pandemic. Number 3, extent to which removal of the restrictions will detrimentally affect nearby property. This is a subjective question. Subjectively, then, I will say, personally, the current glut of available and existing commercial property has already detrimentally affected my nearby property. You don't have to look far to see commercially available property that sits vacant or has been allowed to decay into unsightly disrepair, such as that in the WSU Brayburn Square or behind the Family Dollar store on the opposite corners from these properties. In addition, less than a mile away at 13th and Oliver, 2 of the 4 corners have been unsuccessfully offered for sale for more than a year. Lastly, golden rule number 6, conformance of the requested change to the adopted or recognized comprehensive plan. Does the request agree with the adopted plan recommendations? Your own planning staff has already indicated that this is not the case. I'm sure you've heard the expression, give them an inch and they'll take a mile. Never has this phrase been more personified than in this case. As a neighborhood, we have done our best to give them an inch by indicating that at most, the highest and best use of this property are those activities permitted within a general office designation. Do not give the applicants an inch because they will take a mile, as they have already demonstrated by asking for a limited commercial zoning on a piece of property that has already been built and used for its highest and best purpose, that of the cornerstone of an iconic and unique residential neighborhood that is of high benefit and value to all surrounding individuals, businesses, and educational institutions, the value of a stable and cohesive residential neighborhood. Ultimately, this case is about boundaries and whether those are the highest and best. We're asking you to maintain the existing boundaries, which are the streets of 21st and Oliver. Please do not cross these boundaries and destroy all the neighbors of the Northeast Heights strive so hard to maintain. A unified neighborhood that stands the test of time and should be allowed to stand in the coming times. A lot has changed in the last 5 months. This is not the time to add more change to the coming uncertainty. The overwhelming majority of homeowners in Crestview Lakes are against this rezoning, and we're asking you to vote no and deny. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions for the speaker? None from this room. Anybody in the boardroom have a question for Mr. Falke?
None in the boardroom.
Nothing. Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please. State your name and
Thank
address
you.
for the record. You have 3 minutes. Is there anybody else wish to speak on this issue? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing portion. The agent applicant has 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you again. This is Robert Moody. And I'll just say very quickly, this decision should be based on facts and not fear of what might potentially happen. And the facts are that intersection has significantly changed. There's commercial development all over that intersection right now. And that Mr. Marks and Mr. Gooch are entitled to be able to use that property for its highest and best use, which we believe to be limited commercial. Thank you.
Thank you. Bring it back to the commission for questions, comments, or action. Mr. Blick.
I just wanted to dive in on some of the, that the applicant was asking to talk about, and the strike from would be drive-throughs, amplified speakers, and the 15-foot. I understand the first ones, you know, the drive-throughs and the speaker modifications. I'm just wondering, you know, with the lighting, they have to project it onto the lot. And I get, especially if certain restaurants with drive-throughs usually have taller signs instead of just the monument signs what general office has. So I can kind of see the 15-foot, is that the standard for a typical sign, or is that higher or lower? Is that something that we could ask for staff's recommendation on that 15-foot?
15-foot's the standard height restriction in the LC zoning.
Okay, so that would just be the standard of what it
That's
would
the
be.
standard in the code, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. That was-
Any questions from the boardroom?
No questions from the boardroom.
Okay. Any comments or thoughts from those at home? I'd entertain a motion. Mr. Blick?
I'd entertain a motion
Mr.
to.
Foster has a question.
Go ahead, Foster.
Okay, Mr. Foster, before we go right ahead.
I would like a clarification of the items that the applicant mentioned. I understand number 6 of going to 15 feet on the sign height. I frankly think it should say shall be monument style. But I just want to confirm the other items the applicant mentioned, like item 10 and so forth. Could someone restate those, please?
Yes, for item number 1, they want to strike out convenience store and restaurant with drive-in and drive-through services from that paragraph so that they would be permitted uses. The paragraph in item 1 is a list of prohibited uses. And so they want to strike those out and make sure they're permitted. And then with item 10, they want to just remove it altogether, with the caveat saying that if you have a drive-through restaurant, you need to have an outdoor speaker in order to, if you can't have outdoor speakers and you have a drive-through, drive-throughs have outdoor speakers for the ordering from the order box.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Blick?
I'd entertain a motion to approve per the recommendation of section 1 with having the convenience stores, drive-throughs, services, strike 10 with the outdoor application, and then also increase from 8 feet to 15 feet with the sign.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
We have a second. I want a clarification. Your motion was to approve and to eliminate the exclusion of convenience store and eliminate the seclusion of restaurant and drive-through services.
About the sign height.
And the sign height at 15 feet, and then also to strike 10 with the sound.
Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. We have a motion and a second. Motion by Mr. Blick.
Mr.
Second by
Foster.
Mr. Green. Mr. Foster.
So what I understand is the motion is to approve the LC zoning, is the way I understand that. So I would make a substitute motion, and that would be to take the staff recommendation and to rezone to the GO general office as described in the conditions. I would suggest on the signage that it would, item number 6, shall be monument style, and that's fine to go to 15 feet on that. But I want to follow that up with some comments. In the original discussions for the student housing there on the east side, part of that discussion, I recall, was to only allow a 3-story limit. If you go by there now, that 4.5 story is massive. And I think it's completely out of scale and should have been down around 3 stories there relative to the neighborhood. So that is part of the reasoning for making this recommendation or this substitute motion. A second part is that when you go back and look at the layout of the subdivision there, you've got all these properties that face out onto Oliver as an arterial street. And so the subdivision design, I think, relates to making some sort of commercial here at this intersection. Another thought is the drainage. We talked about this earlier. There was concern for all the runoff that makes it down to the lake that these homeowners are responsible for. There are 2 drain inlets at that corner, and I would be curious if that drainage runoff ends up in the Crestview Lakes, those particular bodies of water, and are carrying sediment and debris that they have to take care of. So I would, again, the substitute motion, we approve the staff recommendation. And then item 6, it would be shall be monuments signs. One final item. On condition number 3, I don't see a benefit of requiring 1.5 times the landscape for the street side along the arterials. By the time you factor in the setbacks and things and the landscape street yard and requirements for parking lot screening, similar to the quick shop, this is going to look fine. So I would adjust item number 3 to scrap the 1.5 times along the street. And that would be my motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second to that motion? We have a second by Ms. Miles. Additional discussion.
Can I ask a question real quick? I just want to make sure with that motion, that substitute motion, David, that you are the staff recommendation of limited commercial with the protective overlay and not GO. He said GO, but I'm confused.
It would be for the GO as recommended in the staff outline there in the report.
Staff is not recommending limited commercial. The original staff recommendation was for general office zoning with a protective overlay. From the December meeting, there was discussion about limited commercial zoning by the Planning Commission, and the case was deferred to with an assignment task to staff to produce a protective overlay for limited commercial zoning because we hadn't done so yet.
Okay.
And so staff recommendation has not changed. Staff recommendation in the staff report is for general office
It's still
zoning.
for general office. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry.
Okay, additional comments or questions? I'm going to weigh in here just a little bit. I'm going to vote against the substitute motion and vote for Mr. Blick's motion. This is a property that they've been trying to work out some kind of a compromise for I don't know how many years now, in an area that has gone very heavily commercial use. And so to penalize this one corner property to try to create a buffer for the neighborhood when everything else around it has gone to a very business use is not fair to the applicant. And so I'm in agreement with Mr. Blick and his motion, and I will be supporting that original motion. Further comments? Seeing none, we have a substitute motion on the floor. Roll call the vote, please.
Warren,
No.
Green,
No.
Gross,
No?
Dexler,
Yes.
Duel,
No.
Blick,
No.
Nix,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
No.
Joe Johnson,
Yes.
Miles,
Yes.
Hartman,
Yes.
Florence.
Yes.
It passes 7-6.
Motion passes 7-6. Okay. Go on to agenda item 5.2. I know that we started off with, let's start with the staff question and then see where we're at.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a question on this item. Let me see if I can find it here. On page 7 of the staff report, under general notes, item number 1, no use of this property as permitted by this PUD shall be permitted until such time second means of access to this subject property in the manner acceptable, blah, blah, blah. Is that determination, was that made by the traffic engineer? Was that made by fire department? Or is that something that was just determined by planning?
And Philip, I can take this, since I wrote the staff report.
Yeah.
And for record, this is Dave Yearout with planning staff. That was done after consultation with the sheriff's department and also discussion with County Public Works about the concerns regarding the fact there's only a single means of access into this property. And that was driven by the fact in the earlier part of the staff report, you'll see that the capacity based on no overall parking room could be up to in excess of 1,800 people with one means of access. And it's complicated also by the fact that there's a median along MacArthur that does not allow you to turn left out of this facility to go to K-15. You get, it's westbound out of there only. So it's one way in, one way out. And we're aware, and I believe there's someone from the applicant that's probably listening and will participate here, but there used to be access over to the adjoining property to the west that had access onto MacArthur that was west of the median, so they could turn back to the east. that was at the time when Sutherland Lumber was in this property. And the indication that we received is that for whatever reason, the two landowners didn't get along anymore, and that got marked off. We think there are some other design considerations that could be made. They need to work with County Public Works on what could be done, because we're aware that without this, traffic coming out will go west and then just do an illegal turn at the end of the median, flip a U and go back as much as they can. So it was a concern to Public Works. I know that there was a discussion made by the applicant to request a cut in the median. And our indication from Public Works was that was not acceptable. So whether that got resolved or not, we've not heard anything new. So that's kind of the background of what's going on.
So, you're looking at two driveways coming out of there that still will only have right turn lanes or westbound.
Well,
access.
if they get another means of access further to the west, the intent was that it would be capable of crossing and turning left onto MacArthur past the west median. There was discussion about that early on. Now, it's got to get resolved.
Let me interrupt here. It looks to me like there's enough to go ahead and hear.
Yeah.
So, Philip, if that's yours, if you could give us as quick of a remaining presentation on this item as you can, and we will run it. But Dave, were you going to do this presentation?
Yeah, I will.
Well, I can.
I will give it.
Your name was on it, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Philip, if you're ready, go.
He's got access to the slideshow.
This case is to establish the MacArthur Lane PUD, which would be PUD 74, to create an entertainment center or tavern or drinking establishment on the subject property, which is partially zone limited industrial. You can see its location at MacArthur and K15. It also has a railroad tracks there to the east as well. A portion of the subject property is unplatted, and if any building permits were to be pulled on that portion of the land, it would have to be platted in order to do so. It's understood by staff in conversation with the applicant that it's to be a new location for Club Rodeo, and that this use is recognized as permitted by right in the LI district. However, because the subject property is within 300 feet of a residential zoning district to the southwest, it has to fall within the supplemental use regulations that make a tavern and drinking establishment a conditional use. And I won't, just for kind of the sake of brevity, won't go into what those supplemental use regulations are unless there's a specific question about them. Additionally, as Dave talked about, there was those parking issues regarding the applicant is requesting a 1 stall per 4 occupant parking standard, which is above what the Unified Zoning Code asks for, which is 1-to-2 ratio. And if the 1-to-4 ratio were to be used, as Dave said, it would be about 1,800 people could potentially be on this site with only one access point. The only thing I will go around is, as you can see on the zoning map, the majority of the property surrounding this is LI with industrial uses. There's some GC to the south, this is general commercial, but the land is vacant. And then to the southwest, there's SF20 as well as limited commercial. The SF20 land is a manufactured home park that has been used as, has received a conditional use for permitting the placement of recreational vehicles. There's no real case history on this. Public services are available on there. MacArthur is a large enough road to handle the traffic. It's just more of the driveway into there. This would conform to the comprehensive plan. Overall, staff is recommending approval subject to changes that are outlined in the staff report. Some of them are just adjusting some of the language under the project description. There's the addition of some other prohibited uses such as the nursing facility, event center in the county, and the construction burn site limited. We've discussed number 1 in their general notes regarding the second point of access. There's some amended language in point 4 of just saying similar activities to horseshoes and cornhole, as well as showing where those would be as noted on the site plan. Number 5, talk about parking. This is where staff is recommending the zoning code requirements for parking at a 1-to-2 ratio versus 1-to-4. Language in point 7 has been adjusted. Instead of the ability to serve alcohol starting at 8 a.m., it would start at 10 a.m. Point 10 has just had some minor language changes of just what the name of what the area would be described, the event center. At the very bottom, what is labeled as point 15, kind of out of order, there's been some adjustments to that language regarding the site plan and the ability to administratively adjust it. The site plan that was submitted with the application was just conceptual, and so they don't necessarily have to come through a whole public hearing process to change the site plan. And so they would like to be able to adjust that administratively within the limits of the administrative adjustment and be approved by the planning director and zoning administrator. On page 8 of the staff report, what was point 16, kind of out of order, it says compliance will be changed to say compliance with the applicable building codes and fire codes shall be required. Occupancy is limited as noted in general provision number 5. They took out language that the applicant had stated about the occupancy being able to be adjusted administratively. With that, I or Dave can stand for any staff questions. If you want to, we can go over the site pictures. If not, we can save that for time. I will bend to the will of the board on that one.
We'll hold the pictures for now, and if we need them. Mr. Blick?
Question, this is in city of Wichita, correct? Because I think right across the street, Sedgwick County.
No, sir, it's in the county.
So it's in the county, okay. I seen Wichita beside it, and I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it's in the county, and that was part of the concern, because the county, the sheriff's office has got police jurisdiction, and it's a bigger challenge for them than it would have been in the city. It's in the county.
Philip, tell me again on number 16, what the change was, and are you wanting to put administrative oversight back in, or that was just a notification that it had been taken out?
Let me find the item that was in the original PUD language. So the original language of the PUD stated that the maximum building or site occupancy is limited to that established by the building or fire officials. Such occupancy may be administratively adjusted to accommodate special short-term events and subject to provision number 4 of the PUD. So that last sentence there that says such occupancy may be administratively adjusted, staff is recommending removal of that to not have the occupancy be able to be adjusted for short-term events.
Okay, thank you.
So, question.
Mr. Johnson?
So staff approval, basically, it is totally dependent on a second means of egress.
Yes, sir.
So if you don't get the second means of egress, it's not approved.
That's the recommendation, yes, sir.
Questions from the boardroom? Okay.
No questions from the boardroom.
Okay, let's go to our agent or applicant. Levi Bond, what I see on here.
Afternoon, Levi Bond with Cobb Valley Engineering, 200 North Emporia, Suite 100, agent for the applicant. We'll keep it short. In general, we're in agreement with staff comments, except for when it comes to points 1 and 5, what we've been discussing the most so far. The second means of access, we have coordinated with both Public Works and the Sheriff's Department. For the Public Works, from their standpoint, there's no way to put a second access point on this frontage. It's 320 feet approximately. There's no way to put 2 access points that close together without creating a safety hazard. And especially if both were on this property, you'd have 2 rights coming out. And if someone did try to get into the left turn lane, they'd be cutting off the point of access that's further to the east. If you follow that, I wish we could share screens here and point things out a little bit. But so it's not allowable by the Sedgwick County Access Management Standards at all. Had a meeting with both Mark Boris and Lynn Packard, and they're not going to allow us to have a second curb cut in there. So from our standpoint, one needs to be completely removed. Maybe a compromise is to have an emergency access point with a crash gate, and that might be something they can work on. But if you put a second access point on this frontage, you're going to cause a safety issue, and then eventually you're going to cause a death from this. And it wouldn't make sense to have two right-only access points on this small of a frontage. And then on number 5, that's the parking ratio. So kind of the backstory on how we chose 1 to 4 is this is a drinking establishment, tavern, and then also has event center elements to it. So the parking ratio required is 1 to 4 for event centers, and that's what I originally went with. Staff recommends 1 to 2. Some mitigating factors there is that this facility is going to be purposely set up for ride sharing, Ubers. If you look at the PUD, Philip, can you switch it over to the actual PUD itself, or Jim? Well, if you have your packets in front of you, if you look at the actual PUD itself, they're creating a dedicated ride share lane in front of the building for drop off and pick up. And they're also creating a seating area for people before and after to be dropped off and picked up. That's going to have an indoor enclosure where they have an extra bathroom and then be able to monitor people after closing times. As we all know, this code hasn't necessarily been updated on parking requirements since the advent of Uber and other ride sharing events. So we think an adjustment's fair. And so between their concerns about the number of vehicles, I think it's more about the number of vehicles on this lot, not necessarily the number of people for access. One thing that I think might be a good compromise and a good recommendation here is let's limit it to 400 parking stalls. So let's cut out 55 cars and then still just have the 1 access point, but let's try to do like a 1 to 3 parking ratio so they can still hit the number of people that makes sense into this large of a building. Other than that, I think we're pretty much in agreement with staff comments that this is a good area. It's not going to impact the neighbors like if they were trying to infill somewhere in Wichita near a residential neighborhood. There's no one this is truly impacting. It's a good location for the owner operators because it's going to be close to Wichita. It's got Derby and it's got Hayesville all within driving or Uber distance. And then the peak operating hours here are not at the same time the shift change for any of the industrial back to the east. Be happy to stand for any questions. Once again, just need some form of change to 0.1 and then 0.5 if you see fit, but 0.1 would blight the property and not allow it to develop for anything.
Okay, before I go to questions, I'd like staff's thoughts on it. There's compromise there of 400 parking stalls, 1 to 3 ratio. Is that a?
Well, the idea
pros and cons of
I
that?
mean, the plan they submitted showed all the parking stalls. And if they've got the idea that we're modifying the overall plan, we don't have a problem with doing that. But I think it's fair, it would be more fair to the planning commission to see that rather than talk it verbally. The same would be the same true before this goes to the Board of County Commissioners. They're going to want to see the definitive plan, which is the whole idea of the PUD in the first place. There's supposed to be a definitive plan. And we were simply reacting to what was submitted. There's been a lot of talk, but there ought to be something in front of you, which, you know, we're willing to work with the applicant and their agent to modify the overall design so that you guys see definitively what's being adopted within the PUD rather than it all be verbal.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, where did the staff think the second point of egress could come from?
There was discussion early on that it would be at the very far west end of this property. There was discussion with Public Works that said that they might be able to trim a little bit of the far west end of the median so that you could get an exit out and make a left-hand turn onto MacArthur, which would allow the ability to flow back to K-15 and also would flow better towards And I forget the name of the street that goes on further south there off the top of my head now.
Is it Inglewood Street?
On Inglewood.
Inglewood.
Yeah. Those were the ideas that were being discussed early on with Public Works about what might be able to be adjusted. Now, that was contingent upon obviously looking at a little more definitive what could be done, because part of the discussion came that you're so close to K-15 that there is, and I never got clear what degree KDOT was going to have a voice in what happened here. So there's a lot of other moving parts to the idea of redesigning anything that happens in there, and we're aware of that. Obviously, we're not going to get access onto K-15. You're not going that way at all.
So what you know now, basically, you would say it was denied.
The push was to try to get two means of access, and public safety was concerned about that as well. But yeah, you had a lot of people saying, yeah, we'd like to see that, but nobody had any definitive answers. And so that's kind of where we are. The idea was what the applicant is requesting is the one means of access you have now. And this the resolution needs to be through the Planning Commission's recommendation and ultimately County Commission approval.
Okay, other questions for the speaker? Mr. Blick?
I had a question just on that. My observation would be is if you move it towards the west, it would align up with that residential neighborhood, and a lot of people would probably cut through that residential on Englewood and then come back on Clifton to get onto K-15, because it would be aligned up. They would just drive straight off, and then they would try to get back over a K-15 going through a residential neighborhood. It'd actually be better served.
Well, that was a concern, and right now they do that anyway.
Okay.
Because they go, if they right turn out of the property, the first time to turn left is onto Englewood now.
Okay.
So
they would take a right and then a left, and then you have to get
yeah,
turned around.
It's not a direct route, true.
Right.
But that is the only way to get easily. Well, the observation was made by both the Sheriff's Department and Public Works that they go down to Englewood and then just flip a U to go back. Unless there's a train on the tracks.
Levi's got a comment here before I let you do that, Levi. Let me make sure there's not any more questions for you or for staff before we go back to that. Anything out of the boardroom that we're missing? Okay.
No questions from the boardroom.
Okay, Levi, give you a minute here to comment to that discussion.
Okay, thank you. So one of the main issues, if you try to put a entrance all the way to the west and you keep the one that's right only where it's at now, is you're gonna have people trying to go across the street and you're gonna have people coming out in the right only. It's gonna cause conflicting traffic patterns. You're gonna have T-bone wrecks there because there's not enough distance between the drives out. So I think that you're still creating a safety hazard if you go onto that end. And if this is about emergency access, we can work on an emergency access drive. I think that's what Dave's saying. But when I talked to Public Works in March on the 16th, they specifically said that we're not going to get another access cut there. We're not going to get a trim down the median there. I have definitive answers on that. That's not happening. And we did talk with the Sheriff's Department, and they said, yes, they would prefer 2 points of access in case one gets blocked, but they'll work with it. There is a gate that they can crash through or cut down off of the other person's property if an actual emergency arises. But when we talked to them, those initial fears they had when they were looking at this case were kind of alleviated when they dug into similar businesses' call reports. And most of it was just, breaking into cars that were unlocked and taking stuff. It's not crashes, blocking entrances. So at the time we talked to them, some of their concerns were alleviated. And we think that, with our request being denied to get a full access at the current spot, it's okay. What they'll do is they'll just end up widening the drive some to allow emergency access into it better. That was what they're planning. We think it's reasonable to have the 455 parking spaces. The only reason I was recommending the 400 is to kind of make a compromise and reduce the number of cars, because I think that's really what Dave wants. He's talking about 1,800 people being in the building, but the real problem is with the number of cars. I mean, if you have 455 parking stalls and 455 cars, that's the issue, no matter if there's only 455 people in the building. So that's the only reason I recommended that. I know that it's not here physically for you to see what 400 would look like, but that's over a 10% reduction. So it's just something we're offering up. I think that it makes sense if you're concerned about the traffic to go to just 400 stalls and do a 1-to-3 seated ratio of occupants. So we have to stand for any other questions you might have.
Let me ask this question, because I'm beginning to doubt that we've got enough information to make a decision today. I don't.
I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Let's go on. Any other questions for Levi? If not, thank you. Hang on. We'll go on to the next step here, public hearing. Is there anybody at Century 2 that would like to speak on this issue?
There are none at Century 2.
Okay. Is there anybody on another device from home or work, phone or computer that would like to speak on this issue? Okay, I'm hearing none, so we'll bring it back to the commission to let's hash out what it's gonna take to either make a decision on this or defer it to another date. Mr. Blick?
Ms. Miles has a question.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Go
I'll
ahead,
get you
Ms.
next, Ms.
Miles.
Miles. Go ahead, Ms. Miles, you get the next say. Go, Cindy.
Oh, I get the next, I thought you meant next, like
No,
after somebody else.
You're next, like right now.
I just want to say, one of my big concerns about this particular project is that, I live down on the south side, and we're looking at creating a facility with a lot of people that will be drinking. And then we've got one egress point and railroad tracks right there where we see a lot of issues with car train wrecks or people getting hit by trains down in that area. And so that just sends up red flags for me, like the two things combined about the safety issues with having this kind of facility in such a close proximity to these railroad tracks.
Okay.
That's all.
Mr. Green.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we approve the request for the zoning, and that we allow one drive under item number 1, and then have under item number 5, a parking ratio of 1 to 3, so that we are reducing the number of vehicles that are coming out of there. I'm afraid that if we don't, if we are gonna require a second drive, it's denied, because there isn't really an option for a second drive anywhere in that location. So that's my motion, is to approve with requiring one drive and a 1 to 3 parking ratio.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Blick. Additional questions or comments?
I do for Mr. Lee.
Okay, Mr. Blick?
Do you know, it's kind of hard to tell, and you might not even have it on there. How wide is that drive going to be?
Levi, up to 30 feet.
It's
Question for
already
Levi.
there, and I'm guessing
Usually
it's
like
probably
30 feet max.
30.
I'm not sure what it is now, but we'll go probably when they do the expansion, it'll be 35 to 40 and put a little pork chop in the middle to make it to where the right end doesn't collide with the exits
Thank you. You answered my
when they
question.
widen that drive.
Mr. Joe Johnson?
Questions?
I would like to support this, but I can't from a safety standpoint.
And that's, whether it's one entry or 2 entries, you're,
Right.
okay? Thank you.
I have a question.
Foster
though.
has a
Yes.
question or comment.
Ms. Dexler?
This is a question for
I'll
Dave.
let Dave go.
Dave, if there were the emergency access to the west or wherever it might work out, does that help at all relative to this single entry question?
Well, based on comments I got from the sheriff's office and their concern and kind of implied also for fire, obviously 2 means of access would be beneficial in the event that there would be an emergency call of some kind. But they also are aware, and if they've got an emergency, they have to get in there, they can turn the lights on and go the wrong way on the median to get in if they have to, so. And the other problem you've got there, obviously, is that you see a lot of train traffic along the railroad tracks, and when they're going along through there, MacArthur has a gate that it's shut off when there's trains on there.
I'm kind of following up like Joe,
Oh,
the
sorry.
concern on safety, because these can be really active places. So,
Ms. Dexter?
Yes, I guess my question would be, can we require he mentioned emergency access with a crash gate. Is that something that we can require as a part of?
I think we can require it. The question I would have is who approves that? That's,
It would be the fire department.
Oh, it's not on our,
okay,
Gotcha.
well, no, is traffic, traffic says we can't have two entrances
Well,
and exits.
Yeah,
Do they have a say on an emergency exit, or can we?
yeah. Traffic would chime in. I would indicate that if you wanted to add in the idea of providing a second means of emergency access, it's got to be as approved and granted by Public Works, County Public Works, and also the appropriate fire department.
Okay. Mr. Hartman?
I've got a comment. I see the site as far as the uses, it's an ideal location with the zoning around it for uses, but I see the traffic as being a big problem. I've noticed out west where the cotillion ballroom is, that when they were, before Kellogg was improved there with the frontage road, they always had problems in and out of there. And every time they had a decent size event, and I'm sure it's a lot smaller than this site, that they had to have police out there controlling traffic. And I think, that's just putting a undue burden on our police department, and with one access point for that size of a development, I just don't think it's practical. So I'm going to be against it.
Ms. Dexter?
can I offer a substitute motion to go ahead and defer until we can get some more information and see the site plan?
How long will it take for us to get more information? In those two meetings, or?
We've got agendas pretty full at the next two meetings, so.
What would be the next date?
It would be the first meeting in July, July 9th.
What kind of information are we looking for?
Well,
I was just thinking that if we would be able to see the site plan, as David had mentioned, and get more information as far as the emergency restriction.
yeah, I was presuming, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I was presuming a modified plan based on comments made by the applicant, coupled with more information definitively about a second means of access or
What's the
emergency
second
access.
meeting in June? What's the date for the second meeting in June?
The second meeting in June is June 18th, and we've already got 15 items on the agenda. It's
If I
already
could
full,
interrupt
yes.
quickly, apologies.
Levi, you hearing this?
So, yeah, I'm hearing you guys, and I just wanted to interrupt about the timeline. Well, one, quickly, the ride out actually makes traffic move quicker, and they have people on their parking lot. But about timeline, this has already been pushed back 2 months. These guys are under contract, and they've already pushed it back twice. We need some sort of approval. If this thing gets denied, they're going to probably lose their contract. If it's access, you can give the planning department permission to administratively allow an emergency access with the site plan, or something like that. These guys have been waiting for 2 months now, and it's hanging on timelines now. We don't have time to push it off till the June 18th. Doesn't that mean that they're middle of July, if not into August, before they get this approved? And I don't mean to be throwing a gauntlet down or trying to push anyone to a corner. This is unfortunate circumstances for everyone with things getting pushed back like this. But that's just the reality of the time. And I'm not sure that a site plan showing less parking stalls helps you guys that much. And if it's just an access thing, we can figure out emergency access for sure. We can make that happen. There's ways to do that, even if it's just doing a flex mat over the curb and a crash gate, so no one even tries to use it. There's engineered ways to do that.
Mr. Black?
Question I have, Levi, is over on the southeast corner, where it's that little box that's over there, there's actually a utility easement driveway. I drive by this every day going to work, and I noticed that they have railroad trucks, they have workers that are driving right through there. Could that be a portion of that fence right through there if they need to, kind of like how they do subdivisions where the fire department has a key and they can use that to get into if they need to be?
So the only problem with that is that it's off property. Otherwise, they'd 100% be okay with that. And it'll be something to that effect. It just won't be in the area you're talking about. It'll be a lockbox, or it'll just be a gate that they have permission to cut. They usually just end up cutting it anyway if there's an actual emergency when they come through emergency access.
Thank you.
My take on this is that due to the location of the railroad track, this is a property that's gonna have limited uses, and so when you find somebody that can make a use of a property that works, you try to figure out a way to make it work. One of the things, I'm not sure that making, whether we did 400 parking or 450 parking, will work out some of the issues. I think this board's divided on other issues, and so my take is let's take the vote, and if we, it's either gonna go down or not, and no use putting them through the process of redrawing and coming up with something else if the mood of the commission is against it anyhow. So.
You should have a substitute. I don't know if we had a second.
Well, and I was gonna say, I mean, can I just withdraw that
You can
substitute?
withdraw.
I'll go ahead
Go
and
with the
withdraw
second.
that. I'm okay
Yeah.
with that. It hasn't
We
been
didn't get
seconded,
that
so,
far.
okay.
That was my fault. We have original motion. Any further comment on the original motion?
Mr. Foster has a comment.
Mr. Foster, speak.
Dave, again, if you'll help, I can't get past the fact that this really needs a secondary entrance. And at this point in time, if we take the vote, are we finding out there's no manner to have a secondary entrance? And I'm not talking just the emergency, I'm talking a secondary entrance.
I guess the question I've got to that is, if traffic says no secondary entrance, is there any business that can go there? Or are we gonna condemn this land?
Well, I think an industrial use of some type would be very appropriate, which is gonna have reduced traffic.
I've noticed it's been closed for 3 years. It used to be a Sutherland's.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those unfortunate situations that you got a bad choice and a worse choice. And I see it as, we're stuck with one entrance forever and ever, so it's just a matter of what do we do with it? Further comment? Call the vote.
Mr. Warren?
Aye.
Green?
Aye.
Gross?
Aye.
Dexler?
Yes.
Dool?
No.
Blick?
Aye.
Nix?
Aye.
Foster?
No.
Bill Johnson?
Yes.
Joe Johnson?
No.
Miles?
No.
Hartman?
No.
Florence?
No.
7-6.
It passes 7-6.
Okay, that was 5.2, we're down to 5.4.
Moving right along.
Kathy, looks like your name's on that one.
Yes, it is on that one. Excuse me. This was deferred from back in April, and then, no, not April, I'm sorry, February, so that the applicant could assemble a little bit more property. Wait a minute. This is zone. Yes. Is this the right? Yes. Okay. Sorry. So this is got two zoning districts. The LC that is abutting the limited industrial that fronts Broadway, and then the SF5 that fronts Park Place. And if you will recall, there was a vacation of the North Market Street to allow business to go back and forth between the west side of Market and the east side of Market along there. That property is assembled by the one owner. And so what they are asking to do is to change that to limited industrial. The access to the site would be from the North Broadway off of 35th Street. You would have access down into the property, and then a gated, well, it would be gated access, I'm sorry, from 35th Street. This is a landscaping and construction business, and there would be solid screening, and a landscape buffer will be required along the north and south interior property lines, where SF5 zoning abuts the existing LI zoning, a landscape street yard per the requirements of the Wichita Landscape Ordinance, and solid fencing will be required along the LI zoning on North Park Place and East 34th Street. Loading docks, trash receptacles, ground and roof or roof level heating, air conditioning, mechanical equipment, freestanding coolers or refrigeration units, outdoor storage or work areas located within 150 feet of residential zoning must be screened. In addition, compatibility building setbacks are required along the side and rear lot lines of SF5 zoning districts abutting LI, minimum of 15 feet plus 1 foot for each 5 feet of lot width over 50 feet up to a maximum of 25 feet. Compatibility height standards state no structure shall exceed 35 feet in height within 50 feet of the lot line of property zoned SF5. Structures located 50 feet from the lot line can increase in height at a ratio of 1 foot in height for every 3 feet of setback. Noise compatibility standards prohibit sound amplification systems if the sound can be heard within any residential zoning. This does conform with the comprehensive community investments plan. This identifies the location as an area of industrial and commercial development that will likely be developed or redeveloped by 2035. The proposed zoning is appropriate due to the proximity of higher intensity business uses that front North Broadway. The existing commercial and industrial uses will have limited negative impacts associated with noise, hazardous emissions, visual blight, and odor. So staff is recommending that the zoning be changed to limited industrial with the all of the issues with complying with landscaping, screening, noise, and so forth, and that the access provided is appropriate. And I will stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? Seeing any questions in there?
None in here.
No questions, okay. Agent or applicant? Looks like we've got Levi again.
Ava Bond with Cobb Valley Engineering, 200 North Emporia Suite 100, agent for the applicant. We're in agreement with staff comments on this. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the applicant? Any questions in the boardroom?
Yes, Mr. Foster.
Mr. Foster?
I'm curious, there are some fairly nice homes in that area existing, at least on Google Street View. Will most of those be torn down?
I can't speak for anything not on the subject property, but on the subject property, they will eventually be torn down. Yes, this is all owned by, is it Venture Rentals or VRI? I can't remember what LLC this is under, but everything to Broadway and then what's shown in the red box here is all owned by the same person.
Not true.
Well,
Okay, is that all you needed, David?
Yes.
Okay, other questions for the agent? Not, we'll go to public hearing. Is there anybody there in Century 2 that wants to speak on this issue?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have one person who signed up.
Okay, please state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Mark Appleman. My address is 457 Paula, but I represent a property I own at 3950 North Wellington Place, which is real close to this project.
Are you there, sir?
I have a little bit of trouble with disability.
Ask your staff person what's going on.
All right. I'm sorry it took so long, but I'm finally ready.
Okay, you have 2 minutes, sir.
What is the purpose of zoning? When I realized my neighborhood was under siege, I asked my computer this question. The primary purpose of zoning is to segregate uses that are thought to be incompatible. In practice, zoning also is used to prevent new development from interfering with character of existing community. I think that's about what I thought zoning was for. I object to this change since it contradicts both the above stated objectives. I ask that no zoning change be allowed. These properties were purchased residential and should stay residential. I do not want chemical storage in my neighborhood. Some problems exist with this specific case as well as regarding necessity. I have some photos, but I won't show them. The fences around this property are eyesores. They're rusted scrap metal. And I don't think that counts as screening. There is no shortage of industrial zoning in extremely close proximity. In the 70s, we all paid through federal tax for urban renewal to make an industrial park that is still less than 50% full, consisting of several square miles from 21st Street to 37th Street, from Broadway to I-35. You're asking us to put industrial zoning right next to a residential zoning without even a road between them. So you're going from the most restrictive use to the least restrictive use in one step with no buffer between them. When I went to find out more information about this and express my concerns, I was told by the zoning contact person this was a done deal. That and the fact the streets are being parceled out and sold to private individuals indicates to me that there may be corruption involved in this.
Mr. Appleton, your time has expired. Do you need another minute?
I could use it.
I'll give you one more minute, sir.
This same block of property also has a for sale sign on it on some of the Broadway property. So why are we rezoning residential into industrial when the same person has part of this block already for sale that's already zoned for what they're asking for? That's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, next speaker. Is there anybody else there, Murray, that wants to speak on this issue?
No, Mr. Chairman, this was the only person here today.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from another device that would like to speak on this issue?
Yes.
Yeah, state your name and address for the record, please, and you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Larry Perlman. My wife Joyce and I are the owners of the property at 3447 and 3451 North Market, which is practically adjacent to the area being discussed. I agree with all the things the last gentleman said, so I won't repeat those. But as he said, the area is already, we live across the street from part of this area that was already rezoned. 34th Street was closed, but there's still a sign there that says the street's there. There's limited access for emergency vehicles now in the neighborhood because there's no access from 34th Street. We have noise, and even though there may not be amplified speakers, there are loud vehicles, there are lawn equipment that creates a lot of noise in the community. There is a very ugly, hideous metal fence that's now on the property on the east side of Market across the street, which is an eyesore, and it's an insult to the community to live there. There are dirt roads there, and the traffic from these vehicles go up and down Market. Even if they say they don't, they do. The road is in frequently horrible condition due to the ruts, and it needs to be regraded frequently, and so it's bad for the people who live there, many of whom have lived there a long time. This property's been in my wife's family for 80 years. Her grandparents and parents and my son now lives in that area, and as we watch this happen, it's not good for this community. There are many vacant properties on Broadway, and with the new access to the North Junction, there's opportunities along existing properties that are either vacant or for sale, including the area to the east of Broadway, but all up and down the corridor of Broadway, there are vacant businesses. I just implore you to stop this and have companies like this look at existing properties instead of taking away from the elderly and traditionally underserved people in the community and making it worse for the people who do live there. It's a lot of elderly people. It's a quiet neighborhood. It's not a crime-ridden neighborhood, but this will continue to lower property values and create problems for that north part of Wichita.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the speaker? I'm seeing none. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any additional speakers for another device? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the agent. You have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate the concerns that were expressed about vacant properties to the east and to the north. Those would be viable options, except for this property owner already owns all of the industrial to Broadway, so they're looking to expand it and turn it into one uniform zoning. So that's why the zoning code has the protections in place for the compatibility setbacks and the screening that are going to be required. Concerning the dirt roads, I think they were there before Bear and my client bought any of this. And up and down Broadway, there's dirt roads, and then there's also industrial abutting directly to residential. This isn't a new case. So really what we're looking at here is he just wants to create one uniform lot for stuff he's already doing along Broadway. He's owned those houses and he's rented them out, and he thinks that this is a better and highest use for his property that he has. And we still would like to support staff's recommendation to zone this to limited industrial, subject to the compatibility setback standards.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any questions for the speaker? Bring it back to the commission for discussion or action.
Mr. Foster has a question.
Mr. Foster.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to confirm the extent of property that's currently owned by the applicant. Do they own, or is it under contract, all of these lots that we're looking at here?
You're talking about all the lots that are inside the red boundary line?
Correct.
Levi, can you answer that? Are all the lots that are inside the red boundary line that we're looking at currently owned by the applicant?
They're all owned at this point. None are under contract anymore. All are owned by him.
Okay, additional questions?
I got a question.
Mr. Hartman.
Hey, Levi, is the access to this property just off of 35th Street, the north side of it?
It's 35th Street, and then he actually owns the stuff to the south too on 34th, so he can get in that gate if he needs to. But all of the traffic will be directed either through the north of 35th or through the gate that was 34th Street.
Has there been any thought to, somebody was mentioning the metal screening that looks so bad. Is there any way they could do something to that?
Yeah, I'm not, I haven't driven out there for a while. If they put up a metal fence, I don't think that that really meets the standards of screening. So I think that they will definitely change that. If you look to the property to the south, I know that I'm pretty sure it's not just metal down there. I'm pretty sure they either use buildings as partial screening, or they have different types of fence material. So I'm not sure if that is temporary or what's going on. If it is just sheet metal, that's not in compliance. So they just need the city just needs to tell them to change it, or I'll get a hold of him and tell him that he needs to put up some sort of wood fence for screening.
Additional questions? Ms. Gross.
So can we request that they only have access to their existing zone property and what they're trying to expand into from 35th Street and their private 34th gate, so they don't have to access through, is it North Park Place and Market Street? Like no commercial traffic on those streets?
They do.
Can't hear me?
I would just say that maybe not Market, because there is industrial stuff already on there, but my client would be all right with not coming down Park Place.
Okay.
To the south, it's not, and he owns those industrial properties down the south too.
I would add to do that, you're gonna have to put a PO on.
Gonna have to what?
You would have to put a protective overlay to address the access, because straight zoning, they've got access to public roads.
Okay. Mr. Blick.
Levi, would you be a for or oppose a PO?
None of the other properties have a PO on it, and I think that I agree with the planning department that the compatibility standards are set such to protect people who are still residentially zoned next to this. I'm not sure what all the PO would add to that. If you have a suggestion of a requirement that's added and it's in a PO, I can probably tell you whether or not that's okay, but I don't know what we do above and beyond the compatibility standards, because there's noise standards in the zoning code as well. So I don't know what we'd change.
I see Mr. Perlman's got his hand up, sir. We don't have the ability to go back. We don't have the option within our rules and regulations to go back for additional comment. Sorry.
Am I allowed to ask Mr. Pearlman a question?
You are allowed, Mr. Foster, you're allowed to ask Mr. Perlman a question. You have the floor, Mr.
Mr.
Foster.
Pearlman, you there? Mr. Pearlman, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you describe a little bit further about this existing fencing, that there might be an opportunity to improve that should this be approved? Exactly where,
So the metal fence runs from 33rd Street all the way up to 34th Street on the east side of Market. It is I don't know if it's sheet metal, just very, I mean, it's just like, I can't describe it. It just looks horrible. It's thrown together. And it doesn't, I mean, the new existing parts there's some chain link fence of which the property owners have put a fire hydrant like inside of the fencing, not the thick metal fencing, but inside of the chain link fence, the fire hydrant that fire hydrant that's in that picture right now that they just passed by is now within the fence. You can see it in one of the pictures that just passed through that metal fencing that I was referring to. Right there, if you look towards the left, you can see it. It's right there. If you look on the left of the screen, you can see that metal like girdering kind of fence. That's what's running all the way up and down the street.
given our application area, I mean, staff needs to weigh in, but I don't see how that's going to apply or improving that can happen with this discussion here.
The fencing and screening has to meet what the zoning district requires, and if there's deficiency in this, it will have to be addressed all the way around where the SF5, they'll have to go down all the way to 34th Street with the screening, fencing, setback, compatibility in there. So it's my understanding that this fence would be upgraded. Is that
even though it's outside the application area?
It's on the, Jim, can you show along the dark line along Park Place? Can you point that out, please? So there at the north end, this is where you see the fence going back to the east, and then the fence going down south along Park Place is at that corner, right there at the street at Park Place.
Okay, so it's part of this then. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Somebody on the commission ready to make a motion? I think we're at that point.
I move that we approve the request to change this from SF5 and LC to limited industrial.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Limited commercial, right? He said limited industrial.
Yeah, to change the two zones that it currently is to limited industrial.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Mr. Green, a second by Mr. Hertman. Additional discussion. Mr. Foster.
You know, I want to recognize the discussion brought up by the neighbors in that, you know, we talk about looking for ways to support and buoy the established central area. I would appreciate some guidance from staff, and perhaps it's not this one, but down the road. How far do you allow encroachment from a major arterial and a major commercial / industrial area into these older neighborhoods, which frankly, we should be looking to support? So anyway, it's just a comment and a question.
Additional questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Warren,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Gross,
No.
Dexler,
No.
Dool,
Mr. Dool?
Aye. Blick,
Aye.
Nix,
Aye.
Foster,
No.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Joe Johnson,
No.
Miles,
No.
Hartman,
Yes.
Florence.
No.
7-6.
7-6, pass.
Okay, that one passes 7-6. And that was agenda item 5.4, is that correct?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Next is 5.7.
Foster had a staff.
Kathy again.
Foster had a question.
I'm sorry, Mr. Foster, did you have a comment or a question?
No, sir.
On 5.7? Okay, he said he had a staff question earlier.
David, do you have a question on agenda item 5.7, the zone change from limited commercial to office warehouse?
Yes, just a point of clarification in the screening along the south. I'm trying to find where that is.
Did you turn?
The existing, the staff report mentions there's solid screening or the fence along the south. However, if you look at it, it doesn't go far enough west. And so I just want to make sure that that's addressed here to meet the requirements for the buffering fence, or the screening fence.
Go back to the zone map, please. So the lot to the south is zoned LC Limited Commercial. Dave, help me out here. Does that require, even though it has a residential use on it, does that require the screen requirement?
We're looking it up.
Yeah, it's, Dave?
He's
I'm
looking-
here.
He's looking, he's got the book out.
It's my understanding that it's based on zoning.
And that's considered an interior lot line, and it talks about screening of all non-residential uses shall be provided along lines that abut. Hang on, I'll cross that out. No, residential district, so it's only applicable to residential zoning, it does not apply, screening does not apply when you're adjacent to commercial zoning.
So the use, that fact that it's a residential use doesn't require there
Correct.
be.
Zoning designation.
It's the zoning designation.
Thank you.
Okay. With that question, let's see if this would be something that we could take by consent. Is there anybody on the commission that wants to hear item 5.7? Anybody in the boardroom want to hear 5.7? Seeing none, is there
No.
anybody in Century 2 like to hear agenda item 5.7?
There's no one at Century to make statement.
Okay, is there anybody listening on another device that would like to hear or have comment on agenda item 5.7? I'm hearing none, so we can take that by consent. All those, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Green, second by Mr. Blick. Further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one passes unanimously. Okay, last item. Item 5.8. Is Matt gonna
Good
take care of that,
afternoon.
or is Philip taking, who's taking care of that one?
Philip. I'm presenting on behalf of Matt.
Thank you, Philip.
The applicant for this case for Zone 2020-09 and CUP 2020-10, the applicant has submitted a request to rezone approximately 11.5 acres located north of East 21st Street on the east side of K96 Highway from single-family residential to limited commercial, and established the New Spring Commercial Community Unit Plan, which will be CUP DP 354. The subject property is part of a larger New Spring church property at this location, mostly located north and east of the subject property. The applicant and agent have indicated at the time of the application they intend to provide parcels to develop commercially. This land falls into the Zone B of the airport hazard zone map because of the James Jabbar Airport. The height restrictions in Zone B is 75 feet, subject to the provisions outlined in the airport hazard zoning regulations, section 2808 of the Wichita Municipal Code. The language in the CUP references the chapter and the code and says that the maximum building height for each parcel shall not be greater than 35 feet, so they don't have any issue there. Proposed CUP will have 8 parcels. Parcel sizes range from 0.74 acres to 1.79. All parcels are proposed to be limited commercial and are to permit the following uses: assisted living, group home, church or place of worship, daycare general, hospital, library, nursing facility, safety service, automated teller machine, bank or financial institution, funeral home, hotel or motel, medical services, general office, personal care service, personal improvement service, restaurant, and retail general. The CUP explicitly states that any use that would require conditional use approval within the LC zoning district are not allowed unless they are specifically permitted by the CUP. The staff does have recommended modifications to the general provisions that we'll go over in just a second. As you can see from the zoning map, the surrounding area is predominantly SF5, especially to the northeast and to the west across the highway of K96. To the south, you have some limited commercial zoning with the collective shopping center, as well as some SF5 zoning with Trinity Academy. The church is directly to the north of it and makes up the rest of the larger parcel that is already there. Case history: back in 2009, BZA 0932 granted a zone to waive the screening requirements adjacent to the church. All the public utilities are available. East 21st Street is a 5-lane arterial road. The comprehensive plan identifies this area as a mix for residential and employment. And the language of the CUP with the overall intent is in conformance with the stated guidelines and policies of the comprehensive plan. Staff recommends approval of this, subject to the following conditions. First one being that general provision number 1 needs to include the overall site size in square feet in addition to acres. General provision number 2 needs to be modified to state that all tenant and development signs shall be monument type signs and indicate that no single sign on 21st Street is permitted to be larger than 200 square feet. The other 2 are pretty standard of the development being in substantial conformance to the general provisions of the CUP, and that the applicant will have to submit 4 copies of the CUP and record a document with the Register of Deeds for this property stating that it has specific development guidelines. The subject property is SF5 and can continue to be developed that way. However, it is being sought for redevelopment at this time. As you can see by the aerial, it is vacant. So this presumably would provide economic benefit to the property owner. With limited commercial being nearby, it is not an unreasonable request to zone these parcels limited commercial, with 21st Street being arterial and K96 being highway frontage. With that, I can we have some pictures probably to go through, if you want to go through to those, maybe. Yeah, there's some pictures. So this is looking north at the church. This is looking south. You can see the land is undeveloped. Across the buildings that you see there are the collective shopping center. This is looking to the east. There's an additional church off-site. It's not on the same parcel, but there's a church to the east. This is looking southeast at Trinity Academy. This is looking west at the vacant land on the subject property, and you can see K96 there in the background. And I can stand for any staff questions.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none in here, any questions in there?
No questions in
No
here.
questions. Okay, let's go to our agent or applicant. Looks like Russ.
Good afternoon. Russ, AD agent for the applicant with Boffman Company. Actually, we are in agreement with staff comments, and I'm not sure which commissioner had a question, but I'll sit for any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Mr. Hartman?
I had a question. I couldn't read your plan, but what is Reserve A restricted to?
That's going to be our pond. That's going to be for stormwater detention retention. That site pretty much goes from northeast to southwest. So we are going to be needing a pond at that corner, quite frankly. Not an ideal location, but one that really the site really can only lend itself to.
Okay, and then your access up there in the northwest corner, what's that connecting to?
That, we had hoped to have had something a little further along, but the church directors have been in conversation with the Greenwich Place development team to potentially extend a private drive through both developments. It would provide Greenwich Place with a southern access point, and it would provide us with a secondary point of access if needed to the northwest. A lot of what was driving development in Greenwich Place, obviously, as most things here currently, has stalled or at least been put on hold for the near term. So the projects that were in place for Greenwich Place isn't going forward on the same schedule as originally thought. So there's nothing, no further conversations, or more importantly, no further concrete resolution to whether or not we would have access to the northwest. But that's the intent. If that doesn't happen, then we would look at some sort of turnaround provided there in that corner. We'll probably hopefully know more when we replat this.
Okay.
Mr. Blick?
I have a question. On that north end of the lot, that's Winona, that's up there. Is it going into a residential neighborhood right now?
Absolutely. Yep. It's not within the project boundary, but the cul-de-sac that is just north of the church was something, when we had worked on platting the Fairmont addition there to the north, you can see it a lot better, north of Magdalene and north of New Spring Church. As we all know, that was a required substreet to the south to provide access for that development. The neighborhood worked with the church some 15 years ago to persuade the church to dedicate the right-of-way for the roundabout that's there, or the cul-de-sac that's there currently. The church has also provided some drainage relief for that subdivision to the north as well. But that is a cul-de-sac that has been built for about 15 years. It is gated, for those of you that may not have been out there, but it is gated at the southern terminus of that. The agreement between the homeowners association to the north and the church is that that gate is open only on the weekends, maybe only open on Sunday, but I know that it's only open on the weekends. But the church there again has entered into an agreement with the neighborhood, and that relationship seems to be pretty straightforward. There is no anticipation or allowance by the church to have any of this potential commercial development to access through the church parking lot to that access on Winona.
You answered all my questions, and I didn't have to ask them.
Perfect.
Any additional questions for us? Seeing none, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in Century 2 that would like to speak on this issue?
Mr. Warren, Mr. Foster has a question.
I'm sorry, Mr. Foster?
Mr. Avey, can you hear me?
I certainly can.
My question is for access up into the northwest corner of these properties. And it kind of relates to a plating question, but what I want to do is make sure, does the CUP itself have enough information related to cross-lot access to service of northwest properties, or would you have to handle, as you mentioned, by private discussions or private covenant or something with the church?
I'm scrambling here through my notes. We may have inadvertently, so cross-lot access easements and cross-lot circulation, we would have no problem granting that as it relates to that proposed private drive that both the church as well as this potential commercial properties would share. We can certainly do that to ensure normal, that's typically normal language in a CUP. I may not have put that in there, but we would have no problem with filing a cross-lot access agreement. Mr. Foster, we're simply, I had asked that question to the client as to whether or not we could state definitively whether or not there was any type of an agreement in place. That is, we're just not there yet. So we would be more than happy to provide that at the appropriate time. But I think the way the initial discussions have been over the last year and a half, I believe that we would be looking at some sort of private agreement. Especially understanding the complexities of the commercial development to the northwest.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I can chime in as well on that, I'm a little concerned about putting language in the CUP trying to address uses of property that are not within the CUP.
Right.
Because this driveway that they're talking about to the development to the northwest is not within the boundary of the CUP with the rezoning here.
Right. Thank you. Additional questions? No, we'll go to the public hearing. Anybody in Century 2 wish to speak on this issue?
There's no one here to speak today.
Okay, is there anybody else by another device off premises that would like to speak on this issue either by phone or computer? Hearing none and seeing none, we'll close that portion of the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
I move for approval, subject to staff comments.
Have a motion by Mr. Hartman, is there a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Dexler. Any additional questions, comments? Roll call the vote, please.
Warren?
Aye?
Green? Aye. Gross?
Aye.
Dexler?
Yes.
Dool?
Aye.
Flick?
Yes.
Nix? Did you leave us? Foster?
Yes.
Bill Johnson?
Yes.
Joe Johnson?
Yes.
Miles?
Yes.
Hartman?
Yes.
Florence?
Yes.
Might try Hugh Nix again. Hugh, are you there? Here.
Okay. Hugh, are you there?
Okay, we'll just count that as an absentee then on that one.
Okay.
Before we,
Thank you.
Before we close out the meeting, there's a couple of things. I understand staff got a letter today from Mr. Richardson, stepping down from the Planning Commission. If you get a chance to talk to him or write to him, thank him for his service. He's been a tremendous asset to the Planning Commission. Appreciate his years of service. He's been somebody I've always enjoyed his take on different issues. Want to put out a big thank you to two groups, the MAPC staff for all the work and thinking through, and the attorneys involved with coming up with something that is legal and workable. Thank you to you guys. And then all of the IT staff that put together the physics of making all this work. Thank you. Great job. This worked as well as we could have expected.
Mr. Warren, would you announce the result of the last?
And a great job by the chairman.
Okay, the last item passed, what, 1201?
1201.
Yeah, 1201 was the last item. And with that, does anybody else have anything they want to add before we close the meeting out? Mr. Green?
When's our next scheduled meeting?
Next, planning commission will be June 4th.
June 4th.
There is a
anticipate-
subdivision committee next Thursday, and we'll do the same thing
We
here.
anticipate both those meetings being here at
And
this point?
yes, they will both be the same way.
Okay. Any comments or thoughts out of the director's room, boardroom?
Now, we got it down, let's